Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Emmaus Flight 537. While we complete our boarding processes, we'd like to invite you to enjoy our sampling of our in-flight videos. You might want to take a look at our newest offering, Interventions.
When Carrie arrived that day, she thought she was there to give a lecture on research methods. But God had another plan in mind, and it quickly became apparent that God was staging an intervention to address the breakdown in their troubled relationship.
Wait a minute. All of these people. Wait a minute. You didn't just bring me here for a conversation. This is a conversation. Oh my God. You're staging an intervention. Seriously, an intervention with the whole confrontation and the heartfelt letters that we read to each other in the whole 9 yards? Seriously? Oh, pardon me, a relational intervention. I kind of think you and I are beyond a relational intervention, don't you? There's not a whole lot left here for us to intervene with.
Hard truths were spoken.
I even believed you when you taught me that my body and my queerness are your gifts to me, that you want me to offer those gifts as my ministry, as my work in this world, to step up, to speak up, to put my body on the line. But so many of our bodies are getting beaten up and legislated and killed. Why don't you, if this is your churches, why don't you do something? So here's the thing, God, I'm done. I've had it. I'm done with this conversation. I'm done with this intervention. I'm done with you. I'm out. Seriously, why am I really angry? You know exactly why we've had this conversation. When it really came down to it, when I needed you most, you were silent. You still are.
But eventually, reconciliation.
So what now? I don't know who we are in this place. I don't know who I am in this place. Besides, I pretty much walked out on you a few minutes ago. I kind of gave up my chance with this relationship, didn't I? Your letter. Of course I can read it. I owe you that much before we call it quits, right? Out loud? Really? Carrie, what if you can't lose this relationship? I don't know then. I just feel like I'm in between everything. But maybe this in-between place is where you and I meet, where we rest together, and where I find my voice. Okay, God. Let's talk.
Available on all eastbound flights of 3 hours or longer.
Yeah, hi, Joe. It's Kerr Mesner calling. Just wanted to leave a voicemail, let you know I'm on my way. MAS Flight 537, I think we get into Buffalo about 2:04. Listen, Joe, I just wanted to touch base with you about the performance tomorrow. I'm not sure if I can, something's come up and, this is really hard to talk about on a voicemail.
Ladies and gentlemen, now that the cabin door has been closed, all cell phones must be put in airplane mode. Thank you for your cooperation.
Joe, this is a really garbled voicemail. I'm sorry. I've got to go. I'll call you when we land. Bye for now. Hey God, it's me. Look, you've been here with me every step of the way, and I kind of need a hand. I'm not doing so well. I'm sure some of it is just the TSA agents and what just happened, but I'm really kind of freaking out about, I'm sorry. Yeah, please, go ahead. I just was, I was praying and, this is embarrassing. Jesus. Oh. Jesus. It's you. You're here. Wow. Talk about an answered prayer. Wow. So you're my traveling companion. I'll take it. Yeah, let's get set. Sorry, I think you're on my seatbelt. Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm fine. I mean, I'm not great, but it's the usual traveling while trans bullshit, you know? I went through the line today and they misgendered me again, and when I tried to correct them, they basically mocked me in front of the entire lineup. It was horrible. And the pat-down search today, I mean, they got right in there. It was really uncomfortable. And to be honest, I've needed to pee for like an hour, but I thought I'd wait till I got on the airplane so I didn't have to deal with the public restrooms. But I'm fine. Yeah, you're right. I mean, clearly I'm not fine or you wouldn't have shown up here. Look, I'm having serious second thoughts about giving this performance tomorrow. I don't know if I should do it. I don't even know where to start. The last 2 years have been like one big transition for me. And since the election, it's been brutal. I just don't know if I have it in me to get up there and tell my stories. Maybe I'll just give them a good lecture, a good scholarly lecture on best educational practices in gender and sexual diversity. The audience will make do, and Joe will understand. I mean, you know why I don't want to do it. It feels too hard, too risky. Performing my stories is hard enough at the best of times. It's like laying my vulnerabilities out there for an audience of strangers. And since the election, I feel like this walking bag of vulnerability every fucking day. It just feels too hard to introduce myself and to tell my stories. I mean, flying today is exactly the kind of vulnerability I'm talking about. I mean, can we look at that for a second? Ladies and gentlemen, in preparation for screening, please carefully check your boarding passes. If you have a 5-letter code highlighted on your boarding pass, you have been randomly selected for additional security screening. When your particular code is called, please prepare for screening by standing and raising your arms over your head like this. Thank you. We will begin with code SSSSS, security screening lineup. Thank you. Please stand and raise your arms if you have this code. The Transportation Security Administration states that all passengers are treated with dignity, respect, and courtesy. Screening is to be carried out without regard to a person's race, color, national origin, religion, disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Thank you. You may take your seats. I've been randomly selected for additional screening. I wonder how this process works. I mean, I got it on my boarding pass back in Vancouver, so it must be random, right? Man, another international transfer here in Vancouver, and I've only got an hour to get through this line. I hope I make it. Okay, maybe it's just me. I mean, I know I'm a bit hypervigilant traveling these days, but what's up with all of us in this special screening line? There's a couple traveling together, and he's wearing a yarmulke, a few people of color, a woman wearing a hijab. But no, it's random, right? I mean, we all came from different origin points, so it has to be random, right? Still, I can't help but notice that all but one of us in this special line have some kind of visual signifier that makes us read as different. Code GGGGG, please stand and prepare for screening if this is your code. Advanced Imaging Technology Machines. A TSA executive states that the technology that we deploy, it does depend on human anatomy. And so in a situation where a transgender traveler approaches the screening station, a decision is made based on the way that individual presents. Thank you. You may take your seats. I fucking hate these scanners. I feel so exposed. It's like being in a glass box with everybody watching. All done? Thank you. Another pat down? Really? I thought that was the whole point of these machines, was to reduce the need for pat downs. Huh. Wow, I've never seen their computer before. There's a blue button for male and a pink button for female, and they chose the blue button for me, and things don't match. Now I get it. Yes, please, go ahead. All right, Carrie, be as obsequious as you can. Totally not who you are, but right now is not the time for activism. Remember, they can detain you for any reason they want, and they're trained to look for signs of nervousness as suspicious. How do I look as unthreatening and unsuspicious as possible? Don't be nervous, Carrie. Code FFFFF, please stand and prepare for screening if this is your code. The Trump administration withdrew Obama-era guidance that allowed transgender students to use bathrooms and facilities that corresponded with their gender identities. In a related decision, the Supreme Court returned transgender teen Gavin Grimm's case to the lower courts. Thank you. You may take your seats. Jesus, do they have any idea what a decision like that does to young trans kids? Or even just to kids like me who just knew they were different somehow and knew that put their bodies at risk? I mean, do you remember that day in 6th grade? I think Mr. Dean was coming back from his lunch break when it happened. All right, class, let's get back to chapter 3 where we left off yesterday. Mary, is there something you want to share with the class? No? Well, then let's get back to work, please. And then as my students are digging out their textbooks, I see what Mary and her friends are giggling about. They're trying their hardest not to look, but everyone is looking. The class can't help themselves. There, over in the window, and the condensation on the glass, someone's written a giant heart. And inside it, the letters KM plus KM. I look over at Carrie, the only person in my class with those initials, and she looks mortified and a bit confused, like she knows this is at her expense, but she doesn't understand why she's been singled out or what the joke even means. I've been watching this unfold for several weeks now. Mary and her friends, they sense something different in Carrie. I don't think they even know what it is, but they don't like it. I'm not sure how to address the situation without making it worse. Someone needs to erase that immediately. Now let's get back to chapter 3. They knew something was different about me. Hell, I knew something was different about me. I had no idea what, just that all of a sudden school was hell. I mean, eventually I started to appreciate my differentness. I started to appreciate that I had a different way of seeing and understanding the world than some of the people around me. That took some time, though. Time and musical theater. I've got to say, coming out at musical theater school in New York City, highly recommended. Oh, no, I couldn't. No, I haven't sung that song in years. I couldn't. No, really, I couldn't. I mean, I don't even identify as a lesbian anymore. I don't even know if I remember. Oh, what the hell? You twisted my arm. Okay. But you know these airplanes do terrible things to guitar tuning, so I should probably just check here. All right. Let's see if I still remember this. Dark of night, candle lit, tea brewing, cat purring. The time is right, the stage is set, my heart is full, I'm ready to sing, and yet I don't know how to begin. There's only one thing I can sing. A serious lesbian folk song sung in a minor key, with heart and depth and earnestness, and ending with a heartfelt plea. If I'm really honest with you as I'm singing to you friends, I tell you in confidence between you and me that I'm not too sure just what it is I'm trying to communicate, but I know I have to do it with the utmost of intensity. For intensity lies at the heart of a serious lesbian folk song, sung in a minor key, with heart and depth and earnestness, and ending with a heartfelt plea. Now, of course, dear friends, we can't forget the place of passion in this song. I'm talking here of passion in the bed and in the street. I see that look of terror in your eyes, dear friends, but trust me, if you take a leap, you might discover that the taste of passion can be sweet. For passion lies at the heart of a serious lesbian folk song, sung in a minor key, with heart and depth and earnestness, and ending with a heartfelt plea. Oh. Wow, Jesus, that takes me back a few years. Holy cow. That really takes me back. And, you know, I mean, a lot has changed since then, but really it wasn't back then. It wasn't just my sexuality that people couldn't quite figure out. It was my gender, too. They didn't know what to do with my gender queerness, how to read me, how to make sense of me. And over the years, that started to take a toll. Code BBBBB, invasive body searches. The Transgender Law Center advises that if you opt out of the full body scanners, you will have to submit yourself to a pat-down search instead. Many people find the pat-down searches extremely invasive, as it may involve agents using the palms and fingertips to touch underneath and between breasts, in the thighs, groin area, and buttocks. Thank you. You may take your seats.
Like that time I was at the airport. Flights to the U.S. security line. Oh, good thing I got here early. What to wear today? Bra or no bra? Not wearing one isn't particularly a feminist statement or a railing against feminine standards. I just find them so damned uncomfortable. And is it time to shave my head again, or do people read me as queerer when I shave my head? Like that woman at guitar camp who said she was surprised I played such a tender, sensitive song when she saw my hairdo. And is it up to me to try to present in a way that I can be clearly and coherently read? Or should I just be me and let the world read me as it will? But when I do that, I have that guy following me into the women's bathroom in the truck stop because he thinks I'm a man stalking the women. And I have that lady shrilling at me in the loo in the theater. And I have that classmate in seminary shrieking in surprise because she thinks I'm a man in the women's bathroom. So that even if it's their misreadings, I seem to be the one navigating the consequences. And the sessions and the surveys and the workshops where I'm asked to tick the male or female tick box. And yes, I'm a woman. Yes, I'm female. I have no problem with that identity. But what I do have a problem with are all the assumptions that are immediately attached as soon as I check that box. And yes, I'm genderqueer. I choose to claim my genderqueerness. I choose to place myself out there in the world that way, whereas for some of my trans friends, it's not a choice. It's life and death survival for them. And I wonder about my privilege and if maybe I'm just whining about the challenges of being genderqueer. But then again, even if I tried to present in a more readable way, would I be read more clearly, or would people still be gender fucked by me? And what is it about me that reads as male anyways? Is it my height, my hair, my stance, my energy? And why is it so different when children try to figure me out? I mean, sometimes I even welcome their questions. Maybe because it doesn't have all that other stuff attached. You must be a man in the women's bathroom, and so you're a stalker or a pervert or worse. And you are putting me at risk. And of course, you must be really stupid if you've been in line with us for 10 minutes here and haven't realized this isn't the women's bathroom. Not to mention I'm not giving up my women's bathroom for a unisex one. That wouldn't feel safe to me. Shoes off, belt off, any bits of metal or coin, laptop out, no liquids above 15 mils. I fucking hate this gauntlet of airport security. Will I set off the alarm or just raise an eyebrow or be the random one chosen for an extra check? Any bits of metal, try to pass. Try to pass. Fuck me, the irony of that. And if they do pick me for an extra check, will they realize I'm a woman or will they get it wrong and assign a male security guard to pat me down? Maybe I should emphasize what little breasts I have to make it more obvious what I am. Oh, crap, this is an international airport. I wonder if they have those new scanners here. It could be worse, like my trans friend who went through one of those scanners and the scanner showed up discrepancies to what the airport security staff expected to see, and my friend ends up doing transgender education 101 with the airport security staff. And then walking down the street at night, sometimes I feel at risk because I'm queer, and some of my friends have been bashed, and hell, I've been verbally bashed in a safe, progressive city, whatever progressive means. And I feel at risk because I'm a woman, too, so I'm glad I've got my rape whistle from UBC. But then again, when I'm walking down the street, do people read me as male? And if so, does that mean that I'm benefiting from male privilege that I don't even want? And if they read me as male, especially when I walk with my New Yorker energy, if I'm walking down the street behind a woman and she thinks I'm a man, does it make her nervous? And if so, should I cross to the other side of the street so that she's not so nervous? But then again, why should I cross the street because of her misreading of me? But then again, I know how it feels to always feel like your body is at risk. So if I can ease a little bit of that for her, isn't it worth crossing the street to ease a bit of that for her? Or maybe I'm just trying to avoid my own discomfort with her discomfort with me. And even though I claim my genderqueerness with great fierceness and great pride, sometimes when I'm correctly read as a woman, something in me is very moved by that. What's that about? And then, of course, the classroom discussions. Let's not forget the classroom discussions. Do I out myself as genderqueer in this discussion? And this is the fourth time tonight this professor's referred to me as he. And how do I correct him without putting more of a spotlight on myself and without making him feel like an asshole and without turning me into genderqueer poster child 101? Fuck me. And maybe what's at the crux of this is that I know that my body isn't safe in public, whether it's because I'm queer or genderqueer or both. Something about me reads to other people, and I'm fiercely proud of that, and at the same time, I know it puts me at risk. And it's really hard to explain to someone in a cisgender body, in a gender-normative body, what it feels to live with that kind of risk in your body every day. So that when I'm in a space with lots of trans folks and genderqueer folks and beautiful butch lesbians, I suddenly realize that I'm breathing more deeply. And I feel teary. And I realize it's because I'm safe. And for a moment, at least, I can let go of that constant sense of my body at risk. My turn. Here I go.
code E. Please stand and prepare for screening if this is your code. The TSA states that all passengers are treated with dignity, respect, and courtesy. Screening is to be carried out without regard to a person's race, color, national origin, religion, disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity. And remember, if you see something, say something. Thank you. You may take your seats. I mean, all of that was a while ago now, and a lot has changed. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's a hell of a lot harder now. But you know, it's like when people used to call me sir. They were misgendering me, and I'd get angry at them. They were misgendering me, and I didn't want anything to do with all the assumptions that came attached to that sir. But now that I'm transitioning from female to male, it's more complicated. It's confusing sometimes. I mean, if someone calls me sir in a Starbucks, sometimes I'm happy. I'm like, yes, you got it. That's right. But then sometimes that old reflex kicks in, and I get angry, and then I remember, and I feel happy, but then I'm just thoroughly confused. It's like dysphoria about dysphoria or something. And you know, certain moments take on so much more weight now, like reintroducing myself to people who already know me. You know, I wonder as I'm sharing this information with them, what stories they're writing on my body, what assumptions are they inscribing here, and the questions that some people ask. Why'd you change your name? Are you going on testosterone? Are you having surgery? Do they have any idea how invasive those questions are? You know, and the truth of it is that the stories that most people are looking for are probably not the stories I'm going to have to tell anyways. My transition has not been some straight linear narrative like what we see on reality TV. It's full of uncertainty and discernment and, I don't know, wrestling with the angels of ambiguity. And I love those angels, I do. But it doesn't fit into some tidy storyline. And I just don't even know if I should be trying to tell my stories when so much is in flux, when I'm still in transit. And you know, this being in transit, it starts to feel like this series of gates or of thresholds or something. Will this person remember my new name? Will this person get my pronouns right and remember that they're male? Will this provider authorize me to get the medical care I need? Is it safe for me to walk down the street today? Will this new law recognize my right to exist? So yeah, I don't know, just trying to get up there and tell these stories, it feels too hard, too risky. Putting myself out there like that, it feels dangerous, because it is dangerous for us now. I mean, once again, trans people have become this political football in this game of myths and assumptions and legislations. And I just don't know if I have it in me to get up there tomorrow and to perform my stories. But look, Jesus, I'm probably being way too vocal about all of this anyways. I mean, I recognize that I have a lot more privilege than a lot of trans folks. I mean, let's imagine Lee, a 16-year-old trans person. And let's imagine that Lee's teacher has dead-named Lee, you know, called Lee by their old name, or misgendered Lee, or both. And when Lee tells their friend about it, their friend's like, Lee, what's the big deal? It's just a name. It's just a pronoun. Well, Lee finally gets so sick of the physical and verbal harassment from their classmates, not to mention their school's teachers' responses, that their hands are tied by school policy, that Lee drops out. And meanwhile, Lee is trying to update their identification with their correct name and gender marker, but the paperwork is confusing and overwhelming, and Lee can't find any legal help. And if Lee does somehow manage to finish high school, even if they do want to apply for higher education, it's almost impossible to do without the correct identification. And so, of course, Lee struggles to find work. And if Lee does manage to find a job with a living wage, they have to hope that they're not going to get fired because, of course, it's legal to fire someone for being trans in 30 states. And as Lee continues to move through these challenges, the stressors start to take a toll on Lee's physical and mental health. But Lee has been traumatized by the cultural incompetence of prior medical providers, and Lee just doesn't know if they've got it in them to face that again. If Lee somehow gets desperate enough to brave the cultural incompetence, of course, there's no guarantee that Lee's health insurance will cover their medically necessary care. And even if it does, there's also no guarantee that the service provider will deign to treat Lee because, of course, Health and Human Services just made it legal to deny health service to trans people. And as Lee continues to deal with all of these economic and social stressors, Lee may very well find themselves homeless. And given that Lee's family may have rejected them and thrown them out, Lee is looking for housing and deals with all kinds of discrimination and potential abuse within the shelter and low rental housing systems. And so as Lee continues to move through the world, Lee might get arrested for using the wrong bathroom. Lee might also get arrested for having the wrong identity documents. And if Lee is a trans woman, Lee might get arrested for prostitution, simply for walking while trans. And if Lee is a trans masculine person of color, Lee's likely to face increased profiling. And of course, if Lee is poor, Lee is likely to face profiling in their community as well. And with all of these stressors, Lee might not be able to even keep a roof over their head, and they might get charged with survival crimes like sex work, drugs, and theft, not to mention quality of life crimes like sleeping outside. And if Lee does get sentenced for these crimes, Lee's likely to get a longer sentence than a non-trans person. And within the prison system will face isolation and segregation at best, and physical and sexual violence at worst. And of course, medical care in the prison system is a crapshoot. And so without their medical care, Lee's appearance might change and increase the likelihood of harassment. If Lee is incarcerated and is also an immigrant, they face additional barriers. And of course, if Lee's family has rejected them, Lee is not eligible for family-based immigration. And as Lee tries to navigate those challenges, if Lee is also HIV positive and coming from a country without adequate access to HIV meds, or indeed if Lee has come here seeking asylum for anti-trans violence in the first place, then for Lee, deportation might be a death sentence. And so when someone says, "What's the big deal?" It's just a name. It's just a pronoun. There's a whole lot more to it than that. But that's where it starts, with the name, with a pronoun, with that moment, with someone else across from you reading you, trying to make sense of you, and in their eyes, something's not making sense. Something is confusing. Something to them is not right. Like that time I was in downtown Vancouver. On my way home, I'm at the corner of Howe and Robson, and I'm waiting for my bus. And I step out to see if my bus is coming. And as I'm about to step back, a voice behind me says, "Get your queer ass out of my face." I'm stunned. I think I've misheard her. But when I look at this woman, she's staring at me with open hostility. Excuse me? Get your queer ass out of my face. You know, the army is coming to kill all of you. As I watch this woman a few minutes later getting onto her bus, she sits in the seat that faces the window, and she glares at me angrily out the window. And as she glares at me, I look at her. And I close my eyes and I say, "Bless you," knowing that it's really more a statement of defiance than of benediction. But you know, on some level, I can kind of appreciate this woman at Howe and Robson. I can appreciate her directness. "Get your queer ass out of my face" is pretty unambiguous. There's no subtlety there whatsoever. And over time, as I find myself thinking about her words and pondering her words, I find myself wondering what her words might sound like as rhythm. Get your queer ass out of my face. Get your queer ass out of my face. Get your queer ass out of my face. And as I play into this rhythm, as I feel my way into this rhythm, I hear American voices.
Sex is hardwired from before birth, and it cannot change.
And we're going to just foster the fiction that boys can act out as girls.
And a proposed law in Alaska would require that anyone using a public restroom bring their original birth certificate.
Even they're being put on the puberty blockers, which essentially castrates them chemically.
Sex or gender are malleable is not true. Okay, and I'm not
followed by surgical mutilation later on.
If I would pretend that they were the sex to which they claim.
Grown adult men, strangers, should not be alone in a bathroom with little girls.
The idea that 36% more transgender people are committing suicide because people are mean to them is ridiculous.
And I play this rhythm as litany for trans lives lost. Like India Monroe, Misha Caldwell, Jamie Lee Wounded Arrow, Jojo Stryker, Jaquarius Holland, Tiara Richmond, China Gibson, Ciara McKelvey, Alfonso Watson, Kenny McFadden, Shay Reed,
It's basic common sense.
Cheryl Faulkner, Kendra Adams, Edmund Morgan,
Extortion.
Keith
And threaten schools that they're going to essentially harm education in exchange for advancing social
Ali
agenda.
Steinfeld,
And he doesn't have the guts to stand up against the
Candace Towns. I can't. I can't bring myself to step out there and tell these stories. I can't. It takes a kind of courage that I can't find on my own. And I want to believe in community. I know there are groups of people working towards good, to rebuild and to survive and to strategize and to create some kind of turning of the world. But all of this is too much to take in, to absorb, to make any kind of sense of. I dread turning on the TV now and opening my Facebook feed, and when I change to the news channel, I mute it until I know who's speaking. I can't continue to fight this battle between cynicism and hope, between faith in people and despair. I can't bear to hear about one more trans woman of color murdered. I don't know how to walk with this body in this world. I can't. Lazarus? I think I remember that story. Well, Lazarus had died, right? And all of you were gathered to mourn him, and you were there with your chosen family. And all of you were grieving, and you wept. I mean, you really wept. And then you all went to Lazarus' tomb, and they pulled the stone away from the tomb, and you stood there at the entrance to the tomb, and you said in this loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" And he did. This man that had been dead for days, he came out with his hands and his feet and his face still wrapped in the burial cloths. I don't remember what you said next. Wait. You said, "Unbind him and let him go." Unbind him and let him go. Unbind him and let him go. Unbind him and let him go. It is terrifying to imagine unbinding the trans man that I am and letting him walk into this country, this time, this world right now. But if I don't, my story is lost. And I am too. Unbind him and let him go. Okay. I will unbind the trans man that I am. I will name myself into this space. I will step over that threshold and I will tell my story. Will you be there with me when I do? Okay. I'll see you on the other side. Hello, my name is Kerr, and I have a story to tell you. Thank you.